Good morning, good morning, good morning. And thank you everybody for coming. I think to our 10th or 12th, I still need to kind of count. It's just been a whirlwind, but our 10th speaker series on nitrogen, brown tides, and the Bay. We have an amazing panel that we will be introducing in a moment. And my name is Todd Shaw. I am president of Save the Great South Bay. And I just want to tell you a little bit about our programs. Robin will introduce some of the heads of those programs who are here today, but the one program that we do, which was just still in the middle of, is called the Creek Defender Program. We've had 10 cleanups so far. At every one of those cleanups, we've had at least 50 people show up. Year after year, it's getting better and better and better. We have a Creek Defender along each one of the 16 towns that line the Great South Bay. Many of them are in the room today. Please, if you're interested in working on the creek close to your home, please try and seek them out or talk to us about getting involved. Tom Kane over here on the board and chairman of the Creek Defender Program, you can go talk to him. It's been absolutely unbelievable. We get the local community involved, schools and local governments, and it's been really, really great. Our other program is the Great South Bay Oyster Program. We're in our second year there. We are partnering with the Cornell. We partner with the town of Islip and the Islip Hatchery. Andy Merschel is here, who heads our Great South Bay Oyster Project. If you have any questions regarding that, please talk to him. And without further ado, what I would like to do is I would like to introduce Robin Silvestri, our executive director. Robin, who basically keeps the whole organization together. But before I do that, I really just want to also just thank very much the Lessings for this unbelievable spot, ordering up this incredible weather today. So I'd just like to give them a hand as well. Thank you.
A little shorter than Todd. So good morning, everybody. My name is Robin Silvestri. I'm the very honored executive director for Save the Great South Bay. It's an amazing organization. I've been with them since 2017, and I've watched them grow through their dedication and inspiration to our local communities and to the Bay itself, to our beloved Bay. So before we get started, I just wanted to recognize a few people who are in the audience today, including our board members, Todd Shaw, Rihanna Quinn Roddy, Tom Kane, Andy Merschel, Karen Marvin, and some very close collaborators with our organization, Janet Soley, Ed Reagan, and Walt Meschenberg. They serve as a part of our Creek Defender program. This is an amazing community-driven program. I'd also like to recognize some of our key partners that we work with on our programs that are in the audience today, including Cornell Cooperative, CTUC Environmental, Center for Environmental Education and Discovery, and several representatives from Suffolk County. We're really glad you could join us today. Thank you. Many of our programs couldn't happen without the support of our local public officials and governments. So I'd like to recognize those elected officials who took their time out of their schedules today to join us and be a part of this really important conversation on issues that are affecting the Great South Bay. We have Trish Bergen, Legislator Trish Bergen, Legislator Anthony Piccirillo, Legislator Steve Flodderin, Assemblyman Jared Gandolfo, Mayor Seary and Trustee Smith from Village of Amityville. Thank you. And representation from Congressman Garbarino's office. As I said, these programs don't happen without a lot of collaboration across many different levels, from our Rotary and our Boy Scouts to our upper level of county management. So thank you so much for everyone for coming out. I would like to take one moment and recognize a special group that is in our audience today. They are what I call the next generation of local stewardship. We have a group of North Babylon AP Environmental Science students with us today who took time out of their day and I think a bus to get here. Thank you. So, thank you. Thank you for your interest in this really important topic. So with that, I'd like to just read you quick short bios on our distinguished panelists. We are thrilled to honor each and every one of them. We have Mr. Peter Scully. He's a Deputy County Executive for Administration in Suffolk County. Peter has worked for a long time for the state, and he is tasked with the enormous task of combating nitrogen pollution in the Great South Bay and in our groundwater. He served as Long Island's regional director of the DEC for nearly 12 years before returning to the county as a deputy county executive under Steve Bellone. Thanks for joining us, Peter. Dr. Chris Gobler from Stony Brook's School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. He heads up the Gobler Labs and is a professor at Stony Brook. He received his MS and PhD from Stony Brook in the 90s, and he joined Stony Brook as a director of academic programs back in 2005. He's working on some really exciting new technologies that we hope to hear about today. And of course, his knowledge and his presentation once a year for us on the state of the Bay is one of our most well-attended events. So thanks for joining us, Dr. Gobler. Next, I'm happy to introduce Susan Van Patten. She's the section chief at the Water Resource Management Bureau for the New York State DEC. She joined us today from Albany, so thank you, Susan, for making the trip down. We really appreciate that. She's worked for over 20 years for the DEC, and one of her primary tasks is to manage the Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan, which is a blueprint for how we're going to help save the Bay. She's been working on LINAP since its inception in 2015, and they have over 30 projects underway with a variety of partners who Susan is tasked with coordinating. Additionally, she oversees the state septic system replacement program, where we look to update outdated cesspools with innovative and alternative systems. So thank you, Susan, for joining us today. Next up, we have Kevin McDonald. Kevin is a policy advisor with the Nature Conservancy, and he is responsible for strategy and government relations in the pursuit of identifying and securing public fundings to support initiatives for land protection, water quality, habitat restoration, and environmental management across Long Island. So welcome, Kevin. Thanks for coming to the table. And at the behest of one of our newest board members, Gary Duff, we have joining us today Joe Densieski. I hope I said that right, Joe. Close enough? Okay, thanks. Joe is the proprietor at Wastewater Works. They're a distributor of innovative and alternative wastewater treatment systems that help to reduce nitrogen by replacing outdated systems with more effective and nitrogen-reducing systems. Joe has been a leader in this industry from the time that Suffolk County proposed to put this septic improvement program into place. So we're looking to hear your experience on that end, Joe. Thank you so much. And finally, we're so pleased to welcome Danielle Campbell as our moderator. Danielle is an investigative journalist. She spent years as an environmental advocate covering activities of our organization and many other environmental organizations here on Long Island, what they're working on, the issues that our island face. She's well-versed in nitrogen and harmful algal blooms and an alphabet of environmental terms that we all should know. So with that, I'd like to turn the mic over to Danielle. I'm going to ask you to please hold all your questions to the end. We will reserve time at the end of our presentation to answer questions from the audience. I'll also ask you at the end to please return your name tags to the front table if you have to leave beforehand. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. It's really an honor. I don't get to do this as often as I would like to. So it's a great honor to be in front of people. I'm not used to, crowds looking at me. Just to let you know, Creek Defender Program is actually up for an Emmy. I covered the story, and these people are so dedicated. I wake them up at 4 in the morning. You have to be on the Great South Bay or at a creek or somewhere at 5, before 5. We're going live at 5, 5:30, 6, 6:30, 7. And they show up, they're boots on the ground, they have their mucks. It's funny, some of the folks that we were together, I didn't even notice them because they're all dressed up. They clean up great. But the last story I was able to do, which was such an honor, which is actually nominated for an Emmy, is at Rattlesnake Creek, behind the Toyota dealer in Oakdale. Okay, Oakdale. What we found there was absolutely astounding. Tires, how many tires? Hundreds? Hundreds of tires. Television sets, the big ones, you know, the big old television sets. All kinds of debris, garbage. It was clearly a dumping site. And it was actually very shocking to see, and I think it had an impact on the viewers as well. But the Creek Defender Program went in there and cleaned this creek up. And even with all the garbage dumped there, you could tell that it was such an oasis and such a special part of Long Island. And I thank you, because you guys are boots on, am I looking the right way? I know this, boots on the ground, and they're taking invasive species out of the creeks, and they're really making change. I want to get the East End, I want to start the Creek Defender Program out a little further. So we're here to talk about nitrogen, and Dr. Gobler and I have had a long history talking about nitrogen. I've flown over the Great South Bay. I've shown Long Islanders pictures of very deadly red tide, crimson tide, mahogany tide, blue alga bloom. And as Robin aptly said, it's an alphabet of alga blooms. Dr. Gobler began this story many years ago in the 80s. And it was about brown tide. What's going on? Why are our shellfish dying? And he was a young scientist who took this by storm and has really become at the forefront of determining what's happening. It's all about nitrogen. So, Dr. Gobler, I'd first ask you to really tell our participants what is going on with nitrogen. Where are we? How about, where we started with brown tide, maybe a quick history about how this all came about.
Sure. And great to see you, Danielle, as well.
Thank you.
I miss seeing you in the morning on News 12.
Oh, thank you. That's kind.
It's good to see you. And it's good to be here. Thank you to Save the Great South Bay for the invite. Great respect for the wonderful work that you all do here, and led by Robin and her endless energy in getting things done. So anyway, pleasure to be here. And yeah, well, I mean, where did it all begin? Well, you could go back to the post-World War II population boom in Suffolk County as we grew from being a county of, the beginning of the 20th century of just 100,000 people to now having 1.5 million people, which is more than most every other county in the city, including Manhattan and Staten Island and the Bronx, for example. And, with that, unfortunately, in Suffolk County, most of those homes were not sewered. The sewered and unsewered line is, I know we're almost on it here. I think we're just west of it here. But, most of the watershed for Great South Bay is unsewered. And, at the time, as we built out Suffolk County, maybe we didn't think that would have consequences. But it clearly now has. So we've seen the nitrogen levels in groundwater continuously rise from beneath our feet. The levels of nitrogen are now approaching 4 milligrams per liter on average, and there's a lot of variance in that. Some communities are much higher. And, and before I get into the Bay, I always like to remind people that nitrate itself in groundwater is actually, in and of itself, a human health threat. People tell you not to eat a lot of bacon and preserved products because it's preserved with nitrite and nitrates. And there are these epidemiological links between multiple types of cancer and nitrate and even birth defects in high nitrate. And these are not 10 milligrams per liter, which the EPA is the standard. This is at the levels, within the range of which we see across Suffolk County. So it's, for that reason, in my opinion, we want nitrate to be as low as possible in our groundwater. But if we don't extract it to drink, we know what happens thereafter. It then flows out into our bays. And yes, so the first of the environmental insults in Great South Bay was the brown tide in 1985. And that was devastating. You know, I'll never forget when I met a bayman in the 80s, and he, you know, I was just a young student, and he, you know, essentially explained to me that he was a bayman, his father was a bayman, his grandfather was a bayman. He expected his son to be a bayman, but that had now ended because the clams were now gone from Great South Bay. And unfortunately, that's continued, right? The landings today are about 99 point, maybe 9% lower than they were in 1980. And along with that, with the brown tide, came the loss of a lot of habitats, specifically seagrass, which are important for fish. Since that time, we have seen all sorts of other harmful algal blooms show up. Danielle did a great job of actually calling out the different types there.
How can I forget?
But you know, things like rust tide that are ichthyotoxic, meaning they can kill fish. We discovered the invasion of an invasive seaweed that just came to North America and took up residence all across the bay, called Daisy-Siphona japonica. Japonica, and the japonica is because it's actually native to Japan. And what we discovered is that it took up residence because the nitrogen levels are high, and it really, really likes that. And it's clearly using the wastewater-derived nitrogen that's coming into the bay. So we're in a tough situation, and the turnaround is quite obvious because we've seen it in other places. If we can get the nitrogen levels down, the ecosystem will recover. And the poster child I always like to hold up is Long Island Sound. In the 1990s, the Long Island Sound study plan was put together by EPA, and they got together both New York and Connecticut and said, look, we've got a dead zone in Long Island Sound, the second largest in the country. And we know what the culprit is, excessive nitrogen from wastewater. We're going to cut levels by 60%. They did it. They upgraded the sewage treatment plants around New York City. And, you know, interestingly, of course, at the time, there were skeptics like, no, this isn't going to work. You know, it's always been hypoxic here. But actually, no, the dead zone has shrunk significantly. I think it's by 60%. Since those cuts were made. And it's been a linear decrease. I love to show the correlation. No slides today. But if I did have a slide, I'd show you this incredible linear correlation where you can see year by year the drop in nitrogen load to Long Island Sound and the shrinking of that dead zone. And so with that, there's been the great recovery of fisheries in Long Island Sound. So, you know, the same thing can be done here. It's more complicated in that we've got to address individual septic systems. And so, you know, I think we're going to talk a lot about that for the rest of the day. But that's how we got here, and you know, the evidence for the scientific-based evidence for how we get out of here is quite clear.
Okay, thank you. And I know that it's not just the Great South Bay, as all the panelists will tell you. Lake Ronkonkoma, the different water estuaries all across Long Island, blue tide algae, which is actually harmful to dogs, can kill dogs. Awexa, I always say it wrong. What is that pond that we go to?
Lake Agawam.
Agawam, I'm sorry, Agawam, Lake Agawam. So it is, of course, the Great South Bay is our primary concern today, but all across Long Island, we are fighting this battle. And all of these panelists are on the forefront. And I just have such high respect for what you do. Kevin McDonald, of course, is putting policies in place and education. Maybe you can update us on that.
Thank you, Danielle. So first, I'm inspired by a Friday morning, really probably first warm day of spring, where most of you could be in your yard, and probably doing things that other people in your family would appreciate, and you're here. So why that's inspiring is you care enough about the place you clearly go to, play in, swim in, fish in, and it's only the public officials seeing folks like you here caring about the place you love that actually results in change happening. So congratulations to all of you. Congratulations to Save the Great South Bay. And we're actually closer to achieving that objective, I think, than we've ever been in the last 10 or 15 years. So the Nature Conservancy, as some of you know, acquired the Blue Point Oyster Company Bay Bottoms almost 20 years ago. And in doing that, our theory was we're going to do the opposite of what the Blue Point Oyster Company did. They extracted everything for 100 years, and we decided we would take $5 million worth of clams, put them back in the Great South Bay, protect the area as a sanctuary, wait for the clams to have wild and amazing sex, produce 250 million young clams, and just watch everything recover. That was our theory. It was somewhat simple, but we were told by lots of people, this is all we need. We have a population problem. And what we've sadly found was after we did all that, the clams kept dying. And we said, why? And then we invited a whole bunch of scientists to a sort of a 2-day seminar on what's going wrong. And the short answer is water quality was declining for all the reasons Chris Gobler just described. And the culprit at the time was 70% of the nitrogen entering the Great South Bay was coming from on-site waste disposal systems. It was a prolific problem. And when we talked to elected officials about this 10 years or so ago, they said, okay, what do you have to do? And we got to change out all these septic systems. Does the technology exist? We think it exists. We don't use it here. What would it take to use it here? Well, we have to, run a pilot program and things like that. And how many do you have to change out? Oh, about 250,000. And Bob Sweeney was then, who actually was in the district, probably affected by the Great South Bay at the time. The look on his face was, this is what you guys want me to do? And it was, yeah, Bob, the sooner we start, the better off we'll be. And this is 10 years ago. The sooner we start, the better off we'll be. So fast forward 10 years later, here we are. I'll let Peter describe the proposal that a working group has advanced. But we have state money that is committed to investing in water quality and on-site waste disposal system upgrades, as well as strategic sewering of discrete areas of the county. We have federal money that's available for that under the right circumstances. In some communities, we have local town money because they have a dedicated fund. I'm not going to spend any time on that here. And what we're missing is a county permanent dedicated revenue stream that would accomplish that. And what you should be seeing here is a four-way, we said this 10 years ago, if we can get a four-party funding proposal at federal, state, county, and town to invest in a scaled-up septic system replacement program, we can see progress in discrete creeks and bays and harbors in under a decade. The faster we do this, the faster your water and your habitat gets better, right? That's the message. So anybody who's saying, oh, let's talk about this some more, maybe we'll spend another decade on it, I'm tired of hearing that. Because I heard the last decade of everybody going, gee, this stuff is tough, Let the voters remind everybody each year whether they care about water quality or not. We had a major bond issue on the ballot last November. 65% of the voters in Suffolk County voted for that bond issue because it's going to help a septic replacement program, much like the county already has running with state assistance. This is not the moment to take the foot off the gas. This is the moment to floor it. And that's what we should be doing. And let me just make this last observation on the policy issue. I really appreciate your Defenders program and how geographically dispersed it is, and yet, to steal a phrase from Danielle's old place, hyper-local concerns about water quality, right? So imagine if your Defender programs working in your own communities started talking to people about how to avail themselves to septic system upgrades. I have a system. People go, oh, what's it like? What does it do? It's like really dull and boring, as it should be, right? And for those of you that have a relationship with your septic system in an intimate way you'd rather not, The replacement program is for you. That's not subtle, right? Change that out. If it's 20 years old, change it out. If you're concerned about pollution, change it out. I have a sensor on mine that Chris Gobler and some of his guys installed just to look for the long-term function and effectiveness of it. I'm getting below 10 milligrams per liter in what probably started out as 80 or 90, untreated, now is treated. It's really effective. It's very invisible, literally, and it works. So if you know now that we have what was a startup program over 6 or 7 years, startup time is over, scale-up time is now. Let's get going, and thank you very much for coming.
And to Kevin's note, we do metrics, at News 12 and Newsday. We do metrics. What do viewers, readers, listeners want on Long Island to hear about? So I bet you can guess what the first thing is. What do they want stories on? What are they concerned about? What do they want to know what's going on? Taxes, of course. But the second is the environment. And the Dolan family, Pat Dolan, really spearheaded efforts to, we had our, What's in the Water series that won some awards and things like that. So we know Long Islanders do care, to your point. Taxes first, probably roads, right, LIE, but and the environment is very important to Long Islanders, and that is something that we've seen from our viewers. So just to kind of hammer that home. But I think we should go right to Peter Scully, because Peter has all the answers about how we get these systems in, how we get the money for it. I've read through the the websites that you have there. It's a lot of work, but it's doable, right?
Yes, good morning. And I guess you're talking about our existing grant program, which is really a voluntary program we began in 2017 as part of a broader effort to introduce the county to the use of what we're calling clean water septics now, and to establish a very firm foundation for the use of the technologies in our county. Our program is a landmark program. It's very well run. It shows the benefits of having a local match of funding, because as a result of the investment we've made in our program, New York State has awarded $45 million across the state over the last few years for septic system replacements. And if each county had received an equal share, we would have received $241,000 in the first year. We've received $40 million of the $45 million that the state has awarded for our voluntary program, because we had a local match. I do want to credit the staff that operates the program. They're here today, Julia Priolo and Jennifer Fries from our Department of Health Services. But as Kevin points out, we have been engaged along with our partners at all levels of government and the scientific community, and now joined by the environmental community and organized labor and the business community in finally advancing a long-term plan to address the problem that Chris Gobler laid out for you quite succinctly. Our community, unfortunately, was fully developed without any plan for wastewater infrastructure. And it's a fact, however, that the very first county executive in this county, H. Lee Dennison, a Democrat and an engineer, predicted entirely what would happen if sewers were not, if there wasn't a plan for sewering Western Suffolk County. I have a study on my desk that he generated in 1962, submitted it to the Board of Supervisors, which existed at the time. There was no Suffolk County legislature, and just urged them to develop a long-term plan to address the lack of wastewater infrastructure in the county. Predicted virtually every impact that Chris has discussed today, and then added at the end saying, if we do not do this, we will be deemed to have been negligent by future generations. And sadly, without any intended criticism, several generations of elected officials have kicked the can down the road, but give credit to the elected officials who are in place right now on the federal, the state, and the local level. The fact is that we do, for the first time, have a long-term plan to address the lack of wastewater infrastructure in the county. It's called the Suffolk County Sub-Watersheds wastewater plan. We've been calling it the Clean Water Plan. It was unanimously approved by the Suffolk County Legislature on March 17th, 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic. And so we've been working over the past several years on the implementation of it. It's real simple. How do you replace hundreds of thousands of cesspools and septic systems, which were never expected to be a permanent solution, over a period of years? And, you know, things changed, being fair, when Suffolk County Executive Steve Bellone took office. I was at DEC at the time, and the environmental groups, including Kevin and Adrian Esposito from the Citizens Campaign, kept coming to me at DEC and saying, we have to do something about this. The problem is obvious. We need a long-term plan. That was 2000, I'm going to say 2010, 2011. By 2012, County Executive Bellone's in office. By 2014, he's taken a look at this issue and said, I'm going to declare nitrogen public water enemy number one. I'm going to take on this long-term challenge. And here's the key thing that he said. He said, you know, if you look at the fact that we have 360,000 of these systems in the ground in Suffolk County, it would be easy to just throw your hands up and say there's nothing we can do about this. He goes, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to do a science-based plan. We're going to establish priorities. We're going to make a little bit of progress every year, and we're going to acknowledge that it's going to take time to reverse the trajectory. It took decades to create the problem. It probably will take decades to implement the solution, but we can do it in a generation. And so he committed himself, along with all the partners here, to develop a science-based plan to invest in infrastructure across the county based on prioritization to replace cesspools and septic systems. We eliminate them in two ways, either by connecting parcels to sewer in communities where that makes sense, and there are some communities in Suffolk County where sewering makes sense. Some of them are nearby. Usually they're in relatively close proximity to an existing treatment works that has capacity, or in the many communities where it doesn't make sense to connect to sewer, simply replacing the existing cesspools and septic systems instead with what we're now calling clean water septics, because innovative alternative on-site wastewater systems does not roll off the tongue. So, you know, kind of an overview. Let me see what else I wanted to talk to you about it. So, yeah, we have a plan. If implemented, the plan approved by the legislature in 2020 will eliminate 171,000 cesspools by 2054 and 253,000 by 2069. There are two things required in order for the plan to be implemented. One is an administrative structure that we need to manage that many IA systems. We have an existing sewer network in our county, which we manage pretty well. But having this many of these innovative, or I'm sorry, clean water septics in the ground is different. We know based on experience in the state of Maryland that if you fail to make sure that the systems are maintained, inspected and maintained, they won't perform, right? So that's a lesson learned from another state. We know that we need to make sure that we have an administrative structure that is in place to oversee both the installation and the ongoing maintenance and operations and disbursement of funding for homeowners. Administrative structure, a county-wide wastewater management district, identified as an early action, no regrets action by the Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan, which Sue Van Patten will discuss. So we need a district in place. And the second thing that other speakers have discussed is the need for a local funding source to serve as the county match to leverage available state and federal funding in order to make it affordable for homeowners. These infrastructure improvements are very, very expensive. We're in the process of implementing sewer projects on the South Shore with post-Sandy resiliency funding. The Suffolk County Coastal Resiliency Initiative, we're eliminating 6,000 cesspools. It sounds like a lot. It's $400 million worth of infrastructure for 6,000 cesspools. When you hear $5 million or $10 million, these are drops in the bucket. And so what we have done over the past several years is develop a proposal for a stable and recurring revenue stream. How do we make sure that rather than relying on one-time bond grants, which are not intended to fund an ongoing program, we know every year what to expect? You know, Maryland told us, until we knew what was coming on a 5-year and a 10-year basis, we couldn't plan for a program. So how do we address that? So what has happened is, over the past year or so, the stakeholders who are supporting this initiative, and they're a very diverse group. They don't often agree on things. It includes the Long Island Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO, the Nassau Suffolk Building Trades, the Long Island Contractors Association, the Nature Conservancy, Citizens Campaign for the Environment, Suffolk AME, they have coalesced behind the idea of using 1/8 of a penny of sales tax to create a dedicated revenue stream that could never be used for any other purpose to generate this stable and recurring revenue stream. Over the course of the program between 2024 and 2060, it would generate $3.1 billion as the county's local match to leverage to get the maximum amount of state and federal funding that's now available from things like the bipartisan infrastructure law on the federal level, the New York State Bond Act, and it would really provide a robust source of funding for the county to invest in sewers in areas where that makes sense, or to offset the cost of upgrades of septic systems and cesspools to clean water septics. We're very excited about that. A couple of things need to happen in order for us to move forward to implement the plan. Well, first off, having worked so hard to develop this plan, approved by the legislature in 2020, and which has been nationally recognized as kind of the gold standard for wastewater planning. Credit to the Suffolk County Department of Health Services and stakeholders like Dr. Golder, who helped establish the plan. It would be a shame, having developed the first wastewater infrastructure plan in the county's history, if it were to remain on the shelf collecting dust, right? So there's a process. Everybody knows there's no easy way to generate revenue, right? It's a third rail politically. But the people of this county have voted repeatedly to invest sales tax revenues for environmental purposes. What's the benefit of using a sales tax revenue? Absolutely no increase in property taxes, no new fees. Much of the revenues are generated by people who visit the county and not by residents, right? And the impact on the consumer is almost invisible, 12 cents on a $100 purchase. But nobody is asking any elected official to vote to implement that 1/8 of a penny. All we're asking them to do is to vote for legislation, to place the question on the ballot, and allow the voters to decide. We made great progress last week when the state legislature, and I want to credit Assemblyman Gandolfo for his support, adopted a budget which included authorizing language that would authorize us at this point to take action on the county level to put the Clean Water Plan on the ballot for this year in 2023. It's our hope that that is going to what will be what's going to happen, and we're very excited. You know, we now have a plan to eliminate 253,000 septic systems over 50 years. It's taken 10 years to develop the plan. Kevin likes to say we're this close, right? We're on the 2-yard line. We're about to go into the end zone. We just need local support to make sure the Suffolk County Legislature over the next 6 to 8 weeks provides the voters the chance, and we're very excited about it. I could talk for hours about our existing programs. We're very proud of them, but this is the big deal, folks. This is the big solution. We've worked 10 years to put it in place. Credit to everybody who has helped. Credit to the elected officials who approved it. I think Legislator Piccirillo was here from the Suffolk County Legislature. Give him credit. We look forward to the implementation of it in years ahead. Thank you.
And there is a website which is easy to find, Reclaim Our Water, put out by Suffolk County, which you can find much of the information, all of the information, I'm right, about the grant money. And there's people who are sitting here who help our residents through the process. And when we first began covering the story, we were experimenting with these IAOWTS sanitation systems, but they've come a long way. Let's talk to Susan Van Patten from the DEC, because we have our state, New York State, also behind us with this, and they have played such an important role. The Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan has been in place for some time now, and they've been watching this and really the science involved, the policies, they've been at the forefront of what's going on with nitrogen here in our waters. Thank you, Susan.
And thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. Yes, the Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan was a governor's initiative in 2015. And we created a working document, our scope, which is like all the different tasks that we need to look at and work on over the course of 2016 with 5 public meetings. And, you know, I've worked in government for a while, as you can tell by my age. And this is not a typical government type of program. Normally, the government is a regulator. We come in, we tell you what to do, how to do it, and you get the job done. And if you don't like it, well, tough. You got to get the job done, right? And that's not really what the Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan. What? Speak up. Oh, sorry. I've never been called too quiet. But to me, the key difference that's different about the Long Island Nitrogen Action Plan is that we are the facilitators, the coordinators, the bringing together of people, the collaborators. Like you had said, we have 30 different initiatives and probably more at this point going on, but they're all done in coordination with either federal organizations such as the USGS or EPA. We work with all the 3 estuary programs, so those are federal, except for South Shore, which is state. And we work with other state agencies, DOS, EPA, Ag and Markets. We work really closely with Suffolk County. I'm on the phone with them all the time. And same with Nassau County. I know you folks are focused on Suffolk, but Nassau County as well. We work with local governments. We work with the NGOs. Kevin just emailed me this week about, hey, get me this information. So I think the thing that I really want people to walk away with is you don't see us a lot, but we're really the glue that puts us all together. We are the ones that work with Dr. Goldler that provide him with funding, that we talk about the direction of where we're going to go with things. We're the ones that talk with Suffolk County and work on their septic program, making sure that they're moving as quickly as possible. Are there problems? Are there things that we can solve at the state level? We talk with Kevin and and Adrian about what are issues that were not being worked on, what are priorities that we need to bring to the forefront. Those are all the things that the state does. And I have some projects and things that we're working on, but I think in the interest of time, I'd like to come back to that if we have time or if people want to catch me afterwards, because there's some really cool things I wanted to hit on. But I think the take-home message is the state's here. We're working hard. You might not see us the way you do, Peter. And the money. We provide a lot of funding. But we're involved in that funding, right? I mean, we really want to make sure that, because this is my other thing there's 2 things I always want people to walk away with. Is one, I'm a taxpayer too, and I handle a lot of money in terms of grants, like millions and millions of dollars worth of grant money I help people manage. But I'm a taxpayer too, and I want to make sure those dollars are spent wisely. So anybody who has a contract with me, as Dr. Gobler can tell you, and Jennifer and Julia, I'm always asking questions, making sure that money is spent wisely for the reason that the legislature really wants us to spend the money on. And then the other thing is what you said, Kevin, about implementation. Again, I've been doing grants for over 20 years, and this is a time where there's so much money out there. And anybody who hasn't availed themselves of the money, you're going to miss that train, and you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. So whether you're a municipality and you're looking to upgrade your wastewater treatment plant or some other infrastructure, or whether you're a homeowner looking for a grant for your septic, do not miss this train, because time will come when this money's all gone, and you'll still be stuck with the problems if you haven't fixed it. So that's the other message I always like to carry to people is, this is a great, great time that we're in. Tons of money, tons of talented people working on it, and we'll make great progress if we all go together down this road.
Joe, of course, is from Wastewater's Works, and Joe, I've never met you, and we've never spoken, but I really want to find out what the heck you're doing and how you're doing it, and it just sounds fascinating. And the thing that is also, just to talk about economic impact, of course, we understand the impact of keeping our waters clean, because we have visitors that come to Long Island. We have summer residents. We love our, I don't know how many miles, 119 miles, both around there and inside the Peconic Bay. We love our waterways. That's why we live here. That's why we stay here, because we love Long Island. We love that we're close to the water. We have salt water in our veins. Hopefully it's clean. It doesn't have any. So Joe, you've been, the economic impact though has been great as well. And you're really someone who can speak about that, because people who were putting cesspools in are now working on these innovative systems that are removing nitrogen, and that's what Joe's all about, and that's exciting on an economic level as well.
Yes, okay. Thank you, everybody, for inviting us here today. I appreciate the opportunity. I don't know how I'm going to follow this panel here, but I'll do my best. The IA clean water systems are definitely working. We're seeing amazing amounts of good, clean water going back into the ground. The old, what we have now is 360,000 antiquated old septic systems in the ground here in Suffolk County. What those systems do is you have a septic tank, if you have a septic tank, which is post 1972, and a leaching field where the water would go. The septic tank is designed to collect all of the organic and inorganic solids that come out of the septic system or out of the home. The key to those systems that we have now is to pump them every 2 to 3 years. If you don't pump them, everybody, the mentality that is, if there's no problem, you're not going to do anything. So if it's not backing up in your house, you're not having a problem, you're not going to spend $400, $500, $600 to pump out your septic system if you don't have any issues. What's happened now is people haven't done that, and now the organic waste builds up in the septic tank. It gets to the top of the tank for capacity, and then as the water is flowing through the septic tank, it's taking that organic matter, puts it into the leaching pools, therefore clogging up the bottom of the leaching pool, and the water builds up. And then it starts leaching out the sides. That clogs up. It builds up. It builds up. I've seen being in this industry for a long time, since I was a 12-year-old, and putting these systems in myself back in those days, it's about 30 years. I think somewhere, I mean, it all depends on the organic loading of a home, an individual home, but about 30 years before those septic tanks will start to back up. What's happening is they're not treated. So the water that is going in there, you have the problem of clogging and backing up, which everybody, I'm sure, has probably had that issue, or if not, you soon will. The other issue is that no one sees is the nitrogen, which we've definitely clearly stated that nitrogen is a problem. Now, how did it get there? It went through these septic systems. The water that's leaching back into the ground is untreated, meaning it's filtered by the sand and the dirt that the water goes through, taking out the solids, but then it clogs up. So the nutrient, nitrogen, nitrite, nitrate, is not removed from the water to the degree that these IA systems do. In a regular septic tank, it does remove nitrates, small amount. I don't even know the number. Dr. Gobler, if he has that answer, I don't even know. But I think it's 10%. Probably less than that, 10%. So we're having that's the issue with the old systems. So now with this new system, what we're doing is we're using that organic matter to recirculate, to create the microorganisms and bugs that are within the system, within our body, that go into the system to do the work of cleaning the water and denitrifying, resulting in the water that's coming out is crystal clear. We're seeing Poland Spring. I could fill up 2 bottles like this, or I could open up a fresh bottle of this and put a bottle of water out of one of the systems into this. You wouldn't know the difference until you drank it. But, yeah, or at least a couple hours after you drink it, you'll know about it. But these systems are definitely working. It's creating plenty of jobs. Right to this day, we have about 2,000. I'm going to speak for, I guess, on the industry. What's the industry number for amount of systems that we have in right now? 3,000. About 3,000. Okay, so there's roughly about 3,000 systems that are in the ground right now. We have a long way to go. Long way to go. They work. These systems work. What we need with help, we need homeowners' help. When you have one of these systems, you need to make sure that you're not flushing stuff down the toilet that doesn't belong down the toilet. If you do that within a home, the maintenance on the systems will be virtually no maintenance. It's very, very, very cheap to do the maintenance. Yes, if you have an old system, you're going to pay, again, going backwards, you're going to pay $375 per 1,000 gallons. They pump 2,000 gallons out, $700 every 2 to 3 years with an old system. The new systems are in the range of about $300 per year to do the maintenance. That with certain systems, that includes the pumping of the excess sludge. It does not include if you got to go there and clean up tank that was definitely misused. So when a rubber duck gets put in there and it gets caught up in a pump or something, and you got to pull it out and clean it, that's flushed down from the home. So The main thing is education on maintenance for the homeowners, which we have an extensive program for that. We'll educate on every install. We love the homeowner to be home. Most of the time they are, because we're doing an upgrade, so they're using the house. So we usually have the house down for 2 to 3 hours in the morning, and then it's right back up again, and then we finish up by the end of the day. And we'll do I went to many homes where I've sat at the kitchen table and explained everything about the system and what to put down and what not to put down, what the maintenance.
It's also not complicated. Explain that. Right?
The maintenance?
Well,
Getting it in.
You know, you can't explain that there's no magic about what you're putting down there. Just
right, yeah.
I don't want people to walk out of here thinking, oh, I don't know what to do. Right? It's really simple.
Right, it's really simple. You don't want to flush stuff that doesn't. Basically, what the one key thing we say is if it doesn't come out of the human body, don't flush it down the toilet. Basically, that's it.
What systems are you using now? Because I know for years there were many systems being tested, wood chips and, there's all kinds of things going on. And that's important. What system are you putting in now? What did you decide on?
So we didn't, it's not so much what the county decided on, but we have a series of manufacturers that have sought approval for their use of their technologies in Suffolk County. Early in the millennium, there were some advocates just suggesting that the county should just allow the installation of any product in the county, and the county executive's approach was, well, let's be more careful, right? Let's make sure that these technologies can all show that they actually function like they say they were going to in Suffolk County. And so we have what is the most robust, and I'm going to say stringent certification process in the county. You initially get a provisional approval, and leading to a general approval for use of the technology. That turns out to have been a judicious thing to do, because some of the technologies that we provide a provisional approval to have not met the county's stringent 19 milligram per liter total nitrogen requirement in the sanitary code. But there are currently, Jennifer and Julie will correct me if I'm wrong, with 7 technologies since the Center for Clean Water Technology recently received a provisional approval for the nitrogen removing biofilter. I have the number right. And 2 technologies have received general approval. So there are theoretically 7 different technologies you could select from. And under our voluntary program, what we did really was to try and make sure that homeowners are getting value by asking manufacturers, saying to them, we issued what's called a solicitation of quotes and said, no manufacturer is required to participate in our program. Any manufacturer may participate in our program, but what we want you to do is submit to us the cost you will charge homeowners for a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom system, so that they can go on the website and see what it's going to cost them. And so that that type of information is helpful. And just so you know, these systems are new to Suffolk County, but they're not new around the world. There are, one manufacturer alone, the Japanese company FujiClean, which is manufacturing here and is one of the most popular systems, has 2 million systems in the ground around the world. And I'm told that there are systems in the ground in Japan that were installed in the 1970s and are still functioning beautifully.
I know one example, and I'm not sure who would like to speak about it, but what happened in Cape Cod and how the water turned around there with putting in these systems with the nitrogen-reducing toilets in schools and things like that.
Yeah, I'm not so familiar with the Cape Cod example, but I don't think they have the type of broad program that we envision here.
No. Oh. Okay.
So do you know the answer? Because I may have something on it.
The answer is they're following what
Yeah.
this guy's doing.
So
Okay.
they started the Cape started this in the middle 2000s. They were afraid of the cost. They were afraid of mandates. They were afraid of, there was a dance going on between the county and the town and the state about whether there'd be a mandate or wouldn't be a mandate. Then, of course, rather than get together and solve problems, everybody litigated. That went on for another 10 years. And so we actually looked at what the Cape was doing and what their science was. So we replicated some of their science because it was really good. Everybody argued about it for a decade. That was really bad. They came up with a strategy that said we have to replace a whole bunch of our septic systems, and then they couldn't do it. So we learned from that and said, well, how are we going to do this? We need an incentive program that Peter alluded to, and it has to be, the impact has to be such an impact that a homeowner says, I'm stupid not to participate in this program because I want clean water and the cost is right. And that's how the program is set up now here. And now guys from the Cape and from the Chesapeake Bay and from Hawaii are calling us and saying, how did you get your program, which didn't exist in 2016 and 17, to the place where you're about to rocket off and go scale multiple thousands per year? How did that happen? So we tell them a story, and and the lesson here is the broad coalition that came around to the incentive-based strategy is the moment we're at, and that's a successful formula. And there's been no litigation on this. Nobody's been yelling and screaming, some yelling and screaming, but no litigation, right? And so that's the story of the Cape. They got hung up arguing over how to move forward rather than finding a solution to move forward. And I have to give all the credit to the county exec's office and to key legislators that worked this effort to get us to this point, where people worked to solve a problem more than they argued about why they're concerned about trying to do this. And that's what happened at the Cape. Yeah. Bad lesson. Thank you, Bob.
Maybe we'll take some questions because we've really had a lot of information on different fronts. As you can see, it's a very complicated and yet simple story. It really has two parts to it, right? And as a journalist covering it, I wasn't full-time environmental reporter, so I thank all these people on the panel because I would say, all right, wait, what are we doing, and what's an IOWATS, and they helped me through it. So it can be very complicated, but I do like how Kevin says it's simple. You have to be stupid not to want to do this. I'd never say that on the air, of course. But let's have some questions.
Yeah, I have a question, Peter, for you. Thank you for your excellent presentation. Yeah, could you just stand up and ask a question?
You want to hand the mic? Yeah. I could do that even.
Dangerous. Okay. Peter, great presentation. Thank you so much. But the question that I have right now is if over the next 4 to 6 weeks, the decision is going to be made to put that proposal on the ballot. I guess that's for November, right? What can we do over the next 4 to 6 weeks to make sure that that moves forward? And as they say in the White House, a follow-up question. Dr. Gobler, what if we do get the money, and just what if there was a magic wand and we were able to get half of those 360 homes outfitted in the new system? What would that do to our bay? Thank you.
Well, I mean, what would it do? It would significantly improve everything about the estuary. When the nitrogen hits, as soon as the nitrogen hits the water, this is actually super interesting. The amount of time the nitrogen lasts in the water is just literally minutes or seconds. It instantly gets assimilated into the ecosystem and has all these cascading effects. So making the answer short, it would stop the algal blooms, improve water clarity, bring back ecosystems, fisheries, habitats, etc.
So with respect to your question about process, we have been anxiously awaiting the outcome of the state budget process to see whether or not the authorizing legislation we would need in order to act locally would be included in the final budget, and we are very pleased that it was. We want to thank the state legislators who have supported us. I thank Assemblyman Gandolfo, who's here. Locally, we had the chair of both the Assembly Local Government Committee, Assemblyman Fred Thiel, and the Senate Local Government Committee, Senator Monica Martinez, who were just stalwart supporters of allowing the voters to decide this issue this year, and we're thankful. So now we have to get busy on the local piece of this and work with our legislators. The good thing about water quality issues in Suffolk County is it's never been a partisan issue. Legislators of all parties have always supported water quality. The Suffolk County Legislature, as I indicated, unanimously approved the finding statement and embraced the plan in 2020. Now, I'm sure they're going to have healthy questions about how the implementation is going to work. We'll be working with them in the weeks ahead to answer questions that they may have. introducing necessary legislation to advance the process. And if things move forward, there will be a public hearing before the legislature in late June, I think June 21st, and all sorts of opportunity for folks to make sure their legislators know how they feel about the proposal. And so, we'll look forward to keeping in touch with stakeholders. It's been very encouraging during the state budget deliberations. Just, dozens and dozens of local organizations wrote to the governor's office and said, please make sure that this is in budget. We had elected officials, Republicans, Democrats, the Republican supervisors of the town of Smithtown and Islip and Brookhaven, generating letters to the governor's office saying this isn't a partisan issue, make sure it's in the budget. So having bipartisan support for water quality has always been critically important. So we have a high level of confidence that the Suffolk County Legislature will say yes. Letting the voters decide in Suffolk County is the way we address big things, and that's the way we're going to address this big plan. But probably a public hearing on June 21st, good to communicate with legislators in the weeks prior to that. And then ultimately, the schedule would have legislature voting at their general meeting in late July to actually approve the ballot measures.
Does it have a name? What's the official name?
So we have been calling the state legislation the Suffolk County Water Quality Restoration Act. So that's the language that we're looking to advance. And we will reference the state authorizing legislation in any local legislation that is advanced. Because, obviously, this plan was not developed overnight. It was developed over a period of years with strong support from all stakeholders, including the state of New York. The amount of funding that the state has provided to the county to make all of these things possible is just unbelievable. We would not have a program if we had not gotten this consistent support from the governors, both the former governor and the current governor, and our partners at DEC.
I just think it's interesting to go over the numbers of the economic loss if we continue to fill our bays and our estuaries with nitrogen. What is the economic loss? Because, it's always the pocketbook, right? I don't know who would like to.
I don't have good data on what the calculated loss would be, but as you observed in your comments earlier, we're surrounded by water here, and it's what draws many people to both live here and visit here. You have a robust tourism economy that's billions of dollars. You have a commercial and recreational fishing economy that's hundreds of millions of dollars. All of those things are at risk if you don't address the wastewater problem. IBM sent a team of experts to Suffolk County in 2014 as part of its Smarter Cities Challenge program. The county applied and was accepted into this program where IBM sends experts out to a municipality to help assess a problem and recommend solutions. And what IBM concluded was that notwithstanding the challenge associated with figuring out the economic aspects of this, the county simply can't afford not to solve this problem because the existing situation is not sustainable. I mean, Dr. Gobler does a great job of making people aware of the frequency of harmful algal blooms. The sad thing is that we have a greater frequency of those in this region than any place else in the United States. And it's just, if you can imagine people coming here to recreate in surface waters and seeing instead discolored water and dead fish, it's just not good for the economy. The other thing we should say, and I don't have data here, is that the investments that our plan envisions have significant positive economic output. And there's a model that we've generated which will become part of the discussion. The legislators are going to want to see that. But the investment creates jobs, the investment creates increases in property values, and the economic outputs that flow from that are billions and billions of dollars.
Dr. Gobler, I'm sorry, I'm kind of hogging the questions as a reporter. I can't help just one quick. What have we seen so far this season with algal blooms?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's already a really bad season. Yeah. So we all know it was a warmer than usual winter, and we all know also to expect that going forward, right? The word climate change hasn't come up yet, but it's sitting right next to us. That's the era we live in an era of climate change. So with that warmer winter, the first algal bloom of the season had a wider window of opportunity to grow. And so that harmful algal bloom is, colloquially we could call it red tide. It's caused by the genus Alexandrium. It makes saxitoxin, a neurotoxin that's 1,000 times more potent than cyanide, and leads to paralytic shellfish poisoning. We currently have 4 different areas across Long Island that are closed to shellfishing because the shellfish are now toxic with levels above the FDA limit for saxitoxin. And we haven't seen that since 2012, the last time we had a really warm winter. So, you know, and essentially what that means is that we can expect, as winters get warmer and warmer, that this would continue to be an event. It's triggered as soon as our waters get to a certain temperature. So, yeah, it's not a great year. And again, with the high levels of nitrogen, we have more and more of our bays susceptible to these systems. And that organism is it's endemic to our waters. It's all over Great South Bay, and so it's just looking for the next place to colonize and form really dense blooms. Yeah.
Okay. I know that this gentleman, I'm sorry. Yeah. Do you want to stand up? Okay.
Chris, I heard there was a little, sorry. There was a comment, need a wireless mic. There was a comment about the 7th system that was approved by the county, and I'm particularly interested in hearing more about it. It sounds kind of like it's may not require electricity. So could you speak to that? Because I'd be particularly interested for myself and
Sure.
whether there is grant money for replacing my system with one of those.
Yeah, so that's the nitrogen removing biofilter made by the New York State Center for Clean Water Technology that's located at Stony Brook University. It's made out of a layer, a 1.5 foot layer of sand, and below that is a 1.5 foot layer of sand and wood chips. The wastewater is distributed by a drain field, which is how most wastewater is handled across the country for on-site. It does have one moving part. It has a pump that you can get at Home Depot, very, very cheap. Not that you would buy it, but that's how simple it is. And but I'm proud to say it's in piloting within Suffolk County. It achieved the lowest nitrogen effluent, not far off of many of the other systems, but lower than the others had in the same stage. And it removes more than 24 different emerging contaminants, pharmaceuticals, drugs, and other personal care products, things we don't want in our drinking water. And because it's now been provisionally approved by the county, it is eligible for the county grant system. Yeah, we're excited about that, and we've already have 2 installers who have installed it before, so they have experience with it, and we're looking. There's yet a 3rd who's looking to make it their business. So we're excited about it.
Thank you.
Just going to pass this mic over. I just had a right hip replacement, so I'm hobbling a little around.
Oh, thank you. Nice seeing you too. I have a quick question to the good doctor. Let me ask you, with the advent of the closure of the Bellport inlet, what will the effects be on this year's levels of nitrogen in the bay, and what should we anticipate for the rest of this year going forward with your comments on the temperatures and everything else?
Yeah, so I mean the new inlet provided some great flushing for Bellport Bay, and then westward into Narrow Bay and Mauritius Bay. So with that closed, yeah, the nitrogen will be retained for longer, and we'll have more time to manifest its effects. So you know, it may well revert back. Now, I think that it's what did Mark Twain say? The reports of my demise have been greatly over-exaggerated. I think that inlet actually still got a little bit of life in it. Just based on what I'm seeing, we have a real-time sensor in Bellport Bay. The salinities there's only 2 things that could be happening based on the patterns I'm seeing. One, that there's still some exchange on occasion happening, or we're getting a heck of a lot of west winds that are blowing that ocean water out of the Fire Island Inlet, because we're seeing, anyway, I think that inlet's not quite dead yet, but it certainly is on its way out. I think it's entered a new phase of being ephemeral, and that there will be some exchange, but certainly as it weakens, just cutting to the chase, that nitrogen's going to have more time to manifest itself within the ecosystem and bring on negative consequences.
Thank you for all being here this morning. I just had a quick question for you. I don't know if you're familiar with when they were expanding the sewer systems in Nassau and Suffolk counties. The EPA issued a report. It's available online. It's entitled "The Effects of Sewering on Long Island Shellfishing Industry." And in it, what it basically discusses is how individual wastewater disposal systems such as cesspools and septic tanks return groundwater to the system. Therefore, if these disposal systems are replaced by sewers that carry wastewater to a treatment plant and thence to the ocean, millions of gallons of potential recharge will be lost to Long Island's hydrologic system. Unless this loss is counterbalanced by other means, such as artificial groundwater recharge, the outflow of fresh water to the bays will eventually decline, upsetting the fresh to saltwater balance. This would lead to change in salinity and change in nutrient input. And they actually even go as far as to say that ultimately the goal will be to establish such large-scale recharge that the outfalls that are now used for ocean disposal of treatment plant effluent will be retained only as backup facilities when groundwater recharge becomes a feasible alternative. Now, since you had said there's so much money available, my question is as part of this plan, is there the money, or are we going to be establishing large-scale groundwater recharge, which they actually mentioned that we should almost get to the point that we wouldn't even need sewers to be sending anything out to the ocean, and then that would return a greater balance to our bays, estuaries, and streams.
I mean, I just spoke with Adrian Esposito prior to the conference just to say, is there anything I should know that's happening? And she just said to me, Cedar Creek Treatment Plant is reusing 300 million gallons of water each year, and that they've started to reuse the water to treat. Their treated water is treating the sewage. Am I have that right? Somewhat? Okay. And there's other, I know Riverhead had a program at the Indian Head Golf Course where they've been using their treated septic water and getting that golf course fertilized. So this is something that has also been looked at. And as I said before, very complicated issue. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with that. I'd be very interested in it, but I think a couple things I observe is that, first, I think this is a good issue to keep on the radar screen, right? The issue of balance, mass balance in the groundwater recharge is an important thing for us to continue to look at. I know it was an issue that was raised in the 1970s when there was tentative plans to sewer the entire county. I also think we should be looking for opportunities for additional water reuse. We have a great project that's seen as a demonstration that involves the Riverhead Sewer District sending treated effluent to Suffolk County's Indian Island Golf Course. CTUC just completed a water reuse report, and we should look for other examples or other opportunities to use water recharge. I do know that it's a much more significant issue in Nassau County than Suffolk because they're 75% sewered and have two major regional sewage treatment facilities that both of which discharge to surface water. And they also are more densely developed towards their west end, and their pumping from the aquifer is great, and so they have saltwater intrusion and issues that result from that. Suffolk County is a little bit different, and then we're largely unsewered. We don't have two major regional facilities discharging to surface water, and there are no plans for any new facilities that discharge to surface water. Any sewage treatment plant that discharges to surface water is one that has existed for decades. And so the question becomes, what is the current situation? What does the data show us about the significance of it? The only thing I'm aware of that I could cite to is work done by CDM Smith as part of the county's Comprehensive Water Resources Management Plan from 2015, in which they pointed out a couple of things. Number one, total water withdrawals in the county are about 17%, only 17% of the recharge amount. So the mass balance is not, significantly off. And they also indicated that current recharge amounts are significantly greater than before the area was developed, like 17% greater. And they attributed that to stormwater basins, stormwater recharge handling. But the difference between pre-development and post-development conditions was like 172.2 million gallons more being recharged per day, according to their analysis. They also concluded that stream base flow at 396 million gallons was a reduction of only 2% compared to pre-development conditions. So luckily, some of the more dire predictions have not come to pass. with regard to the mass balance, and it appears to be very small. With regard to your question about investment in that level of technology, I have not heard that discussed since I got back to the county in 2015. I'm happy to go back to the Department of Public Works and see whether or not it's something that's been discussed. I'd be very interested in if you could share the information that you have with me, because I'm always interested in expanding my knowledge base. It sounds to me like that's important information.
Peter, if I can just add, some of the environmental groups clearly are interested in, with the sort of, you know, this dawning of a new era of water resource protection management, and just being a little smarter than we were 50 and 100 years ago. And I'm not kidding, a little smarter, right? Clearly, you know, we should be reusing all the water we can. Anytime you're using a clean water septic system, your water's going back into the aquifer, right? So the amount of additional sewering that the county, I think, needs to do is relatively modest against the entire population. That's one. And this is really important. There's an appropriate level of concern about what the impact is when drawing down from the aquifer when you discharge offshore. But Long Island is notorious for pumping water to irrigate grass loaded with chemicals so it looks good. That goes right back into the groundwater with a whole bunch of other things that probably shouldn't be there in many cases. So a holistic picture and a review of this would be water reuse and a coherent, rational irrigation policy for the region. If you lived in Nassau County, if you ever went to had a milkshake when you were a kid and you got the straw at the end of the container and you wish it was deeper but it's not, that's some of the water challenges in Nassau County. They have negative recharge. They draw more water than they recharge. That ends really badly at some point, right? So, you know, I'm hopeful that this moment that we find ourselves to get to the next better place for managing our waste allows us to continue making good progress for other better, what a concept, other better water resource management. If any of you follow this in the national news, this is a crisis in most parts of the country. We're not oblivious to this, right? And once you really have something screwed up, everybody goes, oh, had I wished we dealt with this sooner. We can't get this wrong, which means we have to get it right.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. So unfortunately, our time is up for this morning. We like to be very respectful of people's time and promptly at 10. I just want to say thank you to several of our volunteers who made today possible. Joe, who is videographer for our event today, and he will, this event will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel for you to review or to share with friends. I'd also like to say thank you to Kathleen Balsamo, whose pictures you see very often on our social media. She's captured us today in photos. KK Shaw and Janet for helping us set up today. Thanks, Tom Kane, for setting up, and Todd for setting up the sounds. And I'd like to say thank you to Emily, who's been is a new addition to our team and has been a big support in getting together today. I cannot leave this room without thanking the Lessings Hospitality Group for providing this venue for us. It's called The View. It's called The View for a reason. We host all of our speaker series here. We're grateful for all of you who have come out today to learn more about the problems facing the Bay and the potential solutions. So thank you, Peter, Susan, Chris, Kevin, and Joe. Thanks so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to leave your name tags at the welcome desk. Thank you. Thank you, Danielle, for joining us. I'm sorry.
My pleasure.
Hey, Kevin.